Hello and welcome along once again to the latest YouTube production here at Andy Holdings YouTube production here at andyholdingsspeedfigures.co.uk with a look back at the best of the time figures from June the 27th to July the 4th. We begin on the Sunday of June the 27th, and Thundering Knights once again clocked a very good and healthy time figure at her beloved Lecura. She was very strong in the latter stages, needed to be as well, because Santa Barbara came at her with all guns blazing, but she fended that horse off to, in the end, win quite snugly. Prior to that, she finished a good, healthy runner-up in a Belmont Stakes over in Belmont in a Grade 2, and she seems to be fully adaptable with regards mile and a quarter or even shorter, but give her a well-run race at the Curragh, as we saw the other day. She is very, very smart. To the UK, and in midweek, or last midweek, we saw a nice performance from James Fanshaw's Emerging, very much emerged on the scene based on his time figure that he produced at Bath. Off the back of a good solid pace set up by Karuka, and this horse came through quite readily in the end to win going away, clocking a big number on our time figures, 94, which is very healthy for a maiden, and we'd expect big and bright things of Emerging in the not too distant future. Going to have a look. Quick scattergun approach of the best two-year-old performances of last week, and they all came in a little cluster midweek. Sacred Bridge was a very good winner for Joe Lyons over at Tipperary, clocking an 88, which is one of our better time figures over there in Ireland, winning a listing race and beating Musty Air in the process, the UK Raider, who'd finished 9th of 21 in the Queen Mary, giving that race a good deal of substance. She looks as though, for all the world as well, Sacred Bridge, as though she'll appreciate a good deal further than the minimum 5 furlong trip. So look out for her when she steps up in grade over further in future. Over here on these shores, there was a couple of performances by One for the Gutter and Mr. McCann on the same card at Haydock on the 30th of June. First and foremost, One for the Gutter won first time out for Ian Williams, producing a very tenacious display at the Merseyside track. To clock a figure of 88, which again is very, very good for a maiden winner. He looks a horse of some substance and could be going places. Along with Mr. McCann, who clocked at 86 on winning on the round track over 7 furlongs, of course, owned by a group of Liverpool lads who must think that owning horses is a stroll in the park, because that's their first runner for Tom Dascombe. He's a horse who gets over the ground really well, and he showed a bright turn of foot to turn away what looked to be a useful field. Malgev is another horse to conjure with, trained by William Haggas, who won the day after at Yarmouth. He was too green to do himself justice first time out of 5 furlongs, but stepped up to six furlongs at the Seaside venue. He did quicken up quite appreciably in the latter stages to clock a fair time. But he was back in sectionals, which were very good. 33 and change his horse did, off the back of a 84 overall. So I think he could be a pattern race performer in the making. Looking towards the back end of the week, obviously Sandown, we saw some good performances by Calling the Call from the Dark, and the Eclipse win, of course, which went the way of Sir March Basilica, but they didn't really do anything earth-shattering. So we're going to look at a slightly lower level. A horse called Celsius, who won the last race at Haydock on the Friday, I think it was, for Oliver Greenall. That was a very, very strongly run race. They went hell for leather than that 7 furlong handicap, and this horse came through to win in the end with a bit to spare. So I do think he's a horse to keep on side. He clocked a 96 based on our time figures, and probably pride of place for the whole week was a horse called Hard to Fault, which indeed lived up to his name by winning the concluding maiden at Carlisle on Saturday evening. He'd run well the time before at Catterick, but that track didn't suit him. But the stiffer terrain and the softer ground at the Yorkshire track of Carlisle really played into the strengths of Hard to Fault. And on the evidence of what we saw on the clock and of his physique, he looks a horse to keep very much on the right side of. So there we go. Quite a few horses from last week. Thundering Waves Emerging in the early part of last week. And then we went on to the 2-year-old Sacred Bridge, One for the Gutter, Malgev and Mr. McCann. And then to round off the week, Celsius at Haydock and Hard to Fault. Wrap up this week's business. Okay, thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for your company, and we'll do exactly the same again next week when we'll look back and highlight all the best times for this coming week. Until then, it's bye for me for now.